Hello there, Gogokid teachers. This is your long overdue video on the projects that are affiliated with Gogokid. I apologize. I did the assessment video and said I was going to follow up with the project video, and the assessment video was on a Saturday and my appendix ruptured on Sunday. So here I am 2 months later, back in the swing of things, and I am finally going to give you the information on the projects at Gogokid. Now let me start off by saying, if you are familiar with VIPKID, the projects are a little different at Gogokid, basically in the whole structure of them. And that is because at VIPKID, the projects are something that are assigned to the children before their final assessment at the end of a unit. And the students are to bring that project already completed to class to show you and present it to you. And then it is graded as part of the assessment score. Now at Gogokid, it is different. At the end of a unit of study, the student will have their final assessment. At the end of that final assessment, you will then introduce to them what their project is going to be for the next class. So you will review, there will be about 3 or 4 slides at the end that you'll go through and explain to them about the project and the items that they need to bring to the class to do the project. They do not do the project on their own like they do at VIPKID. It is something that you do together as part of a project class following the assessment. Okay, so now at the end of that assessment, as I said, all those things you explain, you mention the items, there's pictures of them on the screen to say what they need to bring to class. I reiterate over and over again, next class, bring those to class. Next class, bring those to class. We will do the project together until they just keep going, yes, okay, I get it. And then in the feedback, I write all that same information. It's important to put it in the feedback too so the parent sees what are the items they need to bring. And I'm very specific in the feedback and explain to them, there is no additional lesson. The whole lesson is the project. It is important that the children bring these pieces to the class so that we can do the project together. I have found that to be very successful in getting the kids to actually bring the items to the project class. You will find that there are kids who show up and they don't have the pieces to their project that they need. In most cases, it's still okay because you can at that point instruct them to go get what they need, whether it be paper, glue, crayons. Usually the items for the project are pretty simple. Scissors, that type of thing. Sometimes they're a little bit more involved and they may be things that they don't have at home. In which case, that brings me to the next point, and that is when it comes to the project, you as a teacher should, it's not required by Gogokid, but from experience, I'm telling you, you should have all the same pieces. And you should be doing the project along with the child. This saves you one, if the kid doesn't have the items around him, he doesn't have a parent around him to help him out, and he doesn't understand what you mean when you're saying go get these items. Most likely they're going to understand because the projects, the kids' language is a little bit higher, so they should understand. But if the child says, I don't have that, and there's no parent to assist them, or it's a more difficult item that's more specific and the child doesn't have it in their home, you're saved because you can then make it on your end and then just use all the language and interaction with the child at that point. Okay, so it's very important for you to bring the items that you need as well. Now, the projects are not at the kindergarten level, at least all the ones at the kindergarten level I have done. Maybe some at the very end of kindergarten, but I doubt it. So it's the upper level kids that are going to be doing the project. So if you finish a kindergarten assessment, there's going to be no information about what to bring to the following project. It's just a goodbye and a song at the very end. But for the level 2, level 3 kids, and maybe level 1 as well, I have to admit that off the top of my head, I can't remember if level 1 has a project or not. But those kids have the language to be able to understand. They have the language to be able to do the project. It makes sense that there aren't projects for the kindergarten level kids because they would just be so confused. Okay, so when it comes to the project, well, every class you kind of have to review in advance, right? But it's the one that you can't review in advance just the day before, because you want to make sure that you have all those items that you need in your house as well. For example, I did one the other day. We needed Skittles. It was a science experiment, and I was putting water on the Skittles and watching all the colors come out. We don't normally keep Skittles in our house. So luckily it was around Halloween time. Got a big bag of a whole bunch of different candy bars and that, and could give them out to the kids at Halloween. But I saved all the Skittles. I have all the Skittles here because I thought if it comes up again, I don't want to have to run out at the last minute and buy Skittles. So I have about 5 packages of them over here for future lessons. All right, now, what is involved with the project? It is just what it says. The two of you are going to make something and you're going to talk about it. It's not so much the actual project that's being made that you're grading. What you're really grading is the language that's involved with it. So your project is an opportunity for you to really converse and talk with your child. You can talk with your child about the project, but if something funny happens during the class and you go off on a tangent, that's fine. Because really the point of all of our lessons is to get them to use their language. And social language is just as important as educational language. In some cases, it's more important. So feel free to have a conversation, to smile, to laugh, to joke around, and have a good time with your student. All right. Let me use the Skittle experiment as an example. When I looked at it in advance, all you had to do was put Skittles on a plate in a circle and then pour some water on it and take a look. And the picture that they showed what it was going to look like was this beautiful swirl of colors. I thought there's no way in God's green earth it's going to look like that. But I hadn't done the experiment in advance because I didn't want to waste a whole package of Skittles. So I thought, well, it's an experiment. Experiments are supposed to be something that you figure out as you go. So I told my student that I haven't done it either, and we were going to be doing it together, and we were going to figure out how it turned out. Now, because I had looked before the assessment at the project, I already knew that this was a project that was going to take all of 5 minutes, and I had a 25-minute lesson to fill. So I told my student to also have some warm water and cold water, and we were going to compare and also see if there was going to be a difference in the colors, because I thought certainly pouring the cold water on it wasn't going to do anything, that we probably needed warm water. And then in the feedback, when I wrote specifically to the parent at the end of the assessment what she needed to bring, I also said that we were going to try it with cold water and also with warm water, that it's okay if she doesn't have the warm water right away at the beginning of class, that we have plenty of time in the class for her to run to the kitchen and warm something up in the microwave. And she did come with all her things at the next class, so that was wonderful. So I think the detail in the feedback is really beneficial so that they know she actually did have a hot cup of water there and regular water. Now, I expanded the lesson by adding hypothesis. This wasn't a vocabulary word that was in the project at all. But I explained what a hypothesis was and how it's an educated guess. So we were going to take a guess. What did we think was going to happen? I had the student make her hypothesis as to our experiment, what was going to happen with the cold water. I made my hypothesis. I used the word hypothesis over and over and over and over to just add another vocabulary word to her lexicon. And then we did it with warm water as well. Let me tell you, it makes a beautiful swirl. And they really did turn out beautiful. So if you're doing that experiment, it works. Surprisingly, it works. So that's what it's all about. Now, to help expand your lesson a little bit more, you are going to have, you don't turn in any evaluation for the project, but they do have at the beginning of the class a little kind of rubric, if you will, listing what it is that you want to see the child do. And then that same rubric shows up at the very end. So I'm going to show it to you right now so that you can see what that looks like. All right. So this is what it is, and this will be near the very beginning of your class when you're doing it and when you're doing your project. And the first one says critical thinking. So you know your child at this point. Usually if you don't know the child, just kind of go through this and explain it. But some of the children you can explain a little deeper and further. Some of the children will get to this and not really understand what you're saying. If you read it just straight on, it seems much higher level than some of the kids that I've done assessments with. But here's how I explain it to them. I say, okay, today in class, I'm going to grade you in 4 areas. I want to see your critical thinking skills. And then I have the student read. I can use feedback to improve my work because at this level, most of the kids are able to read these words. And so I will then explain what that means to them and say, okay, so if something goes wrong, I want to see you think, how can I fix this? Or if something is different than what you expected, can you do something different to change the results? And then I will, down at the bottom, say to them, okay, and now I am also going to grade you with either 1 smiley face, 2 smiley faces, or 3 smiley faces. And then I'll go to collaboration. And I'll say, and have them read it. I can share my ideas. And I'll say, that means as we're doing our project, you can talk to me about what you are doing. You can explain with your words, using sentences, what is happening. And then I'll then go again at the bottom and say, if you do okay, I'll give you 1 smiley face. If you do really good, I'll give you 2 smiley faces. And if you were great, you get 3 smiley faces. And of course, you can be animated at this time. You can't see me being animated because I have this up on my screen instead. All right. The next area is presentation. At the very end of your project, there is going to be a script for the child to read, and they're going to have to fill in some of the words on the script. So when you get to that page, and let me flip it back so you can see me at this point, so you're not keep staring at this. So when you get to that script page, I go through it with the child first and say, let's read through this. And they'll start reading it, and then there'll be a blank line, and we'll see if they can come up with the vocabulary word to fill that. And it'll say, hi, my name is, and then they fill in their name, and I am so years old. So it's like it's meant to be a presentation of their project. And today my project was this, and this is what I learned, blah, blah, blah. So we go through it once, and I have them fill them all in, and then I say, okay, now you are the teacher, and I am the student. Read your presentation to me. Use a good loud voice. Pretend like you are the teacher. And then they get excited about that, and then they can read it. So that's the presentation part. Okay. Then we get to creativity. And of course, I'll explain these are the 3 ways I'm going to grade you. Now, creativity, I have them read, and it says, I can help make something useful. I can help make something useful. And I'll explain that to them and say, I want to see what your project is when you're done. Okay, if you can finish the project and it looks okay, I'll give you a smiley face. If it looks really good, I'll give you 2 smiley faces. And if it looks great, I'm going to give you 3 smiley faces. All right, so that fills in a lot of time because, again, we have 25 minutes. The project was literally pour water on Skittles, see what happens. So you can kind of explain that to them, make sure they understand. Then at the very end, that screen's going to pop up at the end again. And this is your opportunity to read through it with them again and circle how they did and evaluate them, which most of the kids get pretty high scores from me. And that's it. That's it. That's the whole project. It's really simple. They're very simple. There's like, this was One of the kids had to do a map once. They had to draw themselves and then have their name and their school and their age and their home. They had to draw those 4 things from their web. I don't want to say map, actually, that's a web. And so we talked about webs, and I had a few examples of other webs. I had one of myself, and then we did this together in class. I made this with her during the class. So those are the kind of, they're not difficult by any means. Have fun with them and enjoy it, but know that it's a time that you can really just visit with your student and have a good time. So have fun with those projects, make the most of them, and have fun being a Gogokid teacher. Bye-bye. Any questions? Put them down below. Not a Gogokid teacher yet? Want to sign up? My referral information is down below. Have a great day.